Hey guys, this is gonna be me talking about the latest X-Files episode, or the latest that I've watched. Bit deceiving to say the latest because that, of course, was last year or the year before. So that's a long way off for me. But this is episode 9 of the first season, so back in 1993. The episode is simply called Space. So we have basically a space mission type plot where there's issues with a space shuttle and its mission to space, and it focuses on this character, Professor Bell or something Bell. I forget his first name actually. The actor looks very familiar. I'll call him Colonel Bell. I think that sounds about right. But it focuses on him and potentially him covering something up. And we see him throughout the episode being haunted by various things. He's a former astronaut in himself, and he kind of has flashbacks from when he was at space, and we see him still being haunted by those memories. And with this being an X-Files episode, it is, of course, it's starting to get into things like UFO and aliens and obviously life on other planets. And we see like a press clip of him just denying any evidence of any other life on in space on planets, and obviously we we kind of sense that that's not quite true. But when it comes to this mission, heat starts to fall on him, and Mulder and Scully get contacted by this character Michelle, who works at NASA. She's like one of the main people in the engineering room, and she suspects a cover up. She suspects that she takes them through the scenario, and that it was claimed that the mission that went wrong was because of like a valve or something like that, an engine overheating. But she calls foul play on that, because she says for that to have happened, someone would have had to have gained access to the technology, and someone who, well, she's basically saying that's the only way it could have happened, if someone like sabotaged it, rather than it couldn't really have happened naturally, which is what they're claiming. So the episode takes place on the day of the next scheduled shuttle mission. And again, Colonel Bell is in charge of it. And Michelle does have like a personal interest, and it's the fact that her husband is involved. He's one of the astronauts, and that's the setup, the concern over that, and what exactly is Colonel Bell covering up. And as I said, we see him haunted by various things at certain times. And also they play up this angle of Mulder being like a big fan of his. He apparently watched him go into space when he was a kid, and Mulder was really big into that sort of things. He's like a hero of his. So that becomes part of the discussion and the dispute with him and Scully, because she maybe is a bit more cynical and a bit more clear-headed. I think she certainly suggests that at one point Mulder is getting a bit too like close to his idol and maybe not thinking straight. But I guess that's sort of a theme, because obviously Michelle is potentially not a little biased because of her husband. But it gets into things like the politics behind it, the fact that they're essentially taking this cargo up there, and the suggestion at one point is that if they don't finish the mission, if they don't deliver the cargo, that's basically £1 million millions of pounds of space technology that will be wasted. And Colonel Bell, I think it is, says at one. Oh no, I think it's Michelle says it at one point. She says, "Well, that's all the government would need to shut us down, basically." So it gets a little bit into the politics, and this is a pretty poor episode. It's very forgettable. It's very bland, is the way I would say it. Now, I think part of the problem just comes from the fact that I'm not inherently that interested in space type plots, not in like rockets and stuff, and the kind of tension around will they make it, won't they? Which obviously part of this is. I guess, there are some nice little touches. I guess the touch of Mulder being like a boyhood fan of this guy is quite interesting. Does it bring into question his judgment? I think some of the politics, because Mulder does bring up like the issues around people, just the fact that obviously at one time all the other space travel has been frowned upon because that they're spending all this money, and yet people are kind of starving, or it's one of the big arguments against it, because that money could be spent for like education or poverty or other causes, other like humane causes. So I think at one point Mulder just brings that up as an idea of a reason why they might not want the mission to go ahead. There might be an outside sort of interest in stopping it. I think Michelle's a decent character as well. I don't think she's like amazing, but I thought the actress did a pretty good job. I think she was engaging enough. I was, quite sympathetic with her, without being kind of swept up in her or anything. But she was solid enough. I think the problem is it just feels like another very gimmicky episode. It's very cheesy. I think there are certain episodes where the lack of a budget really does show, and I think sometimes they've just kind of gone a bit too far with what they've got, and not sort of dialed it back and worked around the lack of a budget. So I think this is one. I think the fact that you have this idea that we're at NASA and you're getting shots of like aircrafts and rockets and takeoffs and that stuff, I think you can tell that they clearly don't have the budget to really make that work, to make it look convincing. So whenever it like cuts to a shot of like the outside of NASA and the rockets, or a shot of the moon or a planet in space, that stuff does look phony, and you can see them kind of cutting around it a lot. So it almost just looks like stock footage they've got from somewhere, which it probably was, to be fair. But that stuff does give the episode a cheap kind of feel. As I said, I think the plot is just a little bit bland and dry, and the drama of it, I never really got that invested in. There are some nice little touches with the politics, as I said, but yeah, I just never really cared that much about this mission, about whether it went ahead or not, about the astronauts surviving. It's not like obviously the sort of tension they could like rack up in like a big budget, blockbuster type movie. I just never felt the stakes in this. And the other problem is that once you get further into the monster of the week and more's revealed, it comes off as very sort of cheesy and gimmicky. So Colonel Bout's condition like deteriorates over the course of the episode, and we start seeing like these forces that are obviously trying to prevent the investigations and prevent things being like halted or stuff like that. So at one point we see when Michelle has called the agents back because something's gone wrong, like some sort of spiritual force, like whether it's meant to be a ghost or an alien, actually like blocks her car, like just sort of gets on it on like the windscreen, forces her to career off the road. So just moments like that are really cheesy and phony, and again it just looks like a naff special effect. It's probably, I think it's a problem of it just being a cheesy like concept and a bit, yeah, kind of. I think for this episode it might have just been better if they had a bit more ambiguity, like you could have certain things hinting at like a supernatural cause or something like that, but they maybe just dialed it down rather than actually going to the point of showing us, because it does look quite crap when you see it. And then later on we see like the exact same entity appear on Colonel Belt's face when he's like being haunted and things getting on top of him. I think also there is just a genre problem with this, because although I do like sci-fi, although I can be engrossed in like a sort of a space type thing, and astronauts and plots like that, I suppose I tend to be more engrossed with them actually in space, that sort of side of thing, than maybe exploring the planet. I think this side where you're at NASA and the whole takeoff, again, I suppose with the right sort of budget and the right sort of, I mean, I watched the documentary, I think it was last year, the one about the which was it, like Apollo 11, something like that, and that was really engrossing and fascinating, and that proves you can do it. But in general, as a genre, it's probably not something I enjoy that much, and I think the problem here is that you do get quite a lot of like technical like space talk and stuff like that. It just went over my head, and I just didn't find it really that engaging in the episode. Colonel Belt's sort of alright as a character. I didn't think there was too much to him, to be honest. I think the actual actor was solid, but the character itself I just thought was a little bit too one note, and yeah, I didn't really care about him. I obviously had more sympathy for Michelle, which I guess you're supposed to, but it's a pretty dry and bland episode with a couple of like really cheesy moments that drag it down. So yeah, very forgettable is what I would say about this episode. So that's Space. Obviously it's on the lower end. Yeah, I don't really have much to say about it. I'll give it a 3, I think. I was going to be generous and go with a 4, but I think because it is so forgettable and bland, I think that sometimes is worse than something that's like full blown cheesy, but at least has me a bit more interested. So I'll go with a 3, I'm afraid. So that's Space, episode 9 of the first season. Luckily there's some more good stuff on the way, because the next episode is Fallen Angel, which I'll get to soon. I'm also planning on doing it on a live stream, and I do remember that one being much better. But let me know your thoughts on space, I should say, in the comments below. Like and subscribe if you are new to the channel. And yeah, keep watching the X-Files, because it really is a phenomenal show, and I'll be back with more TV reviews soon. Oh, just to get to the list quickly, well, this one is quite simple. I'm going to put it second bottom, so it's just above Ghost in the Machine. I still think that's the weakest episode overall, but this one not far off. So second bottom for Space. I'll see you guys later.